Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we have the new Tier 10 techline German cruiser, the Adalbert import, to review for you guys today. I forgot that these guys came out of early access last Wednesday, or I would have made this video a lot sooner. Of course, there's a lot of news and information to go over with the release of 14.10, of course, with missiles and all being added into the game. So it kind of got swept under the rug and then lost from my radar until now. And man, after playing the Manteuffel, I was looking forward to this bad boy, and oh yeah, boys, it's a good one. So we're going to go through the Adalbert today, talk about her stats and features, and whether or not I do believe she is worth the grind in full. But before we do, absolutely massive shout out to the channel's Patreon supporters. I am not a CC, so I don't get any of these ships to review for free or in early access, as I'm sure you guys are well aware as, of course, CCs put out their reviews for the Adalbert, so shoot, over a month or so ago. But I mean, hey, look, you get a more up-to-date review of the ship and all that jazz. I guess you see it, from that angle. But anyway, yes, massive shout out to these guys. These guys allow me to get what I can get, either when it comes out or in the in-game early access event. So we can, of course, get a little bit sneak preview of them for you guys, or at least early access to them as early as I can get it, thanks to those guys whose names should just popped up on screen. And if you feel like joining them and being oh so generous, you can check out the link in the description down below to the channel's Patreon. Every single cent, of course, helps out. So, massive shout out to those guys, and thank you. Okay, on to the Adalbert herself. She is quite the boat, as I'm sure you guys can tell. This thing is, whoo boy, the head of the Panzerschiff line. These guys are pretty good up and down the line, and the Adalbert, as the crown jewel, is no exception to the craziness going on here. So, of course, economically, this is, just a Tier 10 techline ship, so it has no special economic factors bolted onto it. I do have the bonus package, and I am running green economic bonuses on everything, so when you see the in-screen results for the matches they'll be running in the background, that is what I am running on it. This is not the permanent camo or the premium camo for it either. This is just the Hunter camo. I did not purchase the premium camo because, well, that costs money, and camos don't do anything anymore. But onto the armor. The ship is very well armored for being a cruiser. Keep in mind, guys, this is a cruiser, as we're talking about some of these stats here. So she does get a 27mm bow and stern. That's very good for a cruiser, but no icebreaker bows. Expecting her to maybe have that, as that's a thing that most of the German battleships do have. But yeah, 27mm bow and stern. Nice middle finger to 15-inch guns, which you can see you are a Tier 10 cruiser, so there's a very good chance you'll be thrown into some Tier 8 games. And of course, there's no shortage of ships with all manner of main battery guns up and down the brackets from Tier 8 to Tier 10. But again, no icebreaker bow to kind of help you out there, like some Soviet ships do get to enjoy. But anyway, moving on from her bow armor, she does have a 100mm side with a 200mm belt with a citadel that is well below the waterline and drop behind that armor belt. So it's a very hard ship to citadel. You probably aren't going to really be able to do it unless she's turning hard over, or of course you're at range with some very large guns. You do have the step deck in the back, as you can see in front of the number 3 turret. You can eat shells through there. Now it is 100mm thick, but it's just flat metal, and there's no shortage of guns that can of course get pins through it, so do be aware about that. But pretty well armored for a cruiser, I must say. With the flag, you do have 67,100 hit points. A very healthy Tier 10 cruise, if I do say so myself. 37% torpedo damage reduction. Now, the main battery guns, which, despite their name, are probably the guns that you really shouldn't be spending too much time firing, as, of course, with the manual secondaries, there's a lot to like there when it comes to the Adalbert. The main battery guns do consist of 9 350mm guns, with the build that I am running, which should pop up on screen somewhere around here. It's, of course, a full secondary battery build. you have a 27-second reload time on those 350 millimeter guns, which are some ridiculously big guns to be having on a cruiser, of course, which does also lead to some pretty funny moments where you do Citadel, battleships fairly regularly with the Adalbert. I mean, there's a couple of times in here that I had a Montana that I guess felt like it was okay to show me broadside. Then you found out, having 13.8 inch guns that can and will still very much get through the Montana's armor into his Citadel. So yeah, and it is German AP2 on top of that. So you do get a good alpha of 10,500 with 815 meters a second initial velocity. The HE, which you'll probably never really use, does 4,000 alpha and has a 28% fire chance, and it can pin 88 millimeters of armor, which, Wargaming, did you think that through? I don't think so, really. But yeah, so the main battery guns are surprisingly decent, considering that the performance you're seeing in the background is absolutely nothing being built into them. Like, zilch, nada, not a reload module, not a range module, not a dispersion module, and they're pretty good. Now, of course, they do have a relatively short main battery gun range of 18.2 kilometers, but I mean, you're going to be wanting to get in closer than that, obviously, in the Adalbert. So on top of that, you do have 12 150 millimeter guns with a 4.3 second reload time and a maximum range in the manual firing mode of 13.6 kilometers, which would be absolutely amazing if it was on a battleship, let alone a cruiser. And it is the German HE, so you do get the improved pins and all that jazz to give it a 38 millimeter penetration rating with a 9% fire chance and 1,700 maximum damage. But the real stars of the show are the 18 128 millimeter guns that you have with a reload time of 2.5 seconds, again 13.6 kilometer maximum range in manual mode, 1,500 maximum damage, 6% fire chance, and 32 millimeters of penetration. So you have here 30 secondary guns that can be controlled by you. They can go out to 13.6 kilometers. That's a little goofy, shall we say, and is, of course, the main attraction for the Adalbert for a lot of you guys. Now, do keep in mind, you don't have to fire the guns in manual mode. You can use, just the normal secondary method of letting them shoot whatever they want to shoot, and they work very, very well either way. In my experience, using them in manual mode is great for dealing with destroyers and such. You can predict their jukes a little bit better and all that jazz, as the guns do have a higher accuracy in manual mode but a longer reload time. Or you can just let them, again, do their thing and take the, not really debuff, but take the lower accuracy and just let them absolutely swarm the target with an overwhelming amount of incoming fire. And either will work. What I was doing, if it was a larger cruiser or something, I would kind of just let the secondary guns do their thing and, focus on using the main battery guns, because again, the main battery guns are pretty solid in and of themselves. If it was something like a destroyer, maybe it was, a battleship at range, and I really wanted to try and, form out that superstructure, I would then swap over to these secondary guns. But of course, you can do you with these guns, and I was doing like 170, 180k a game pretty easily with the Adalbert, and yeah. It's pretty stupid. Now, the secondary guns, unfortunately, you don't really have the best angles from the front, because as you notice, all the 128 millimeter guns are just bolted directly onto the deck. There's no, type of towering to, give them, better firing angles or anything like that. And, from the front, you can only really use, I think it's the two 150 turrets in the front of each line that you can use when you're bow in, so that does kind of suck. And you do have to show a lot of angle to get off all those secondary guns from the forward firing angle. Now, from the stern, it's a lot better. And yeah, you'll have no problem getting most of your secondary guns on target from the stern, but since you tend to be wanting to go towards the enemy ship and closing the range, yeah, that does suck from time to time, but it's not too often that you can't get a good amount of your secondary turrets on target. And man, when you get these guys going, you'll be starting fires, you'll be doing good consistent penetration damage, because every single secondary gun can pen 32 millimeters of armor, which is the last major threshold in the game. So that means, all the tier 10 battleships and everybody else, they have 32 millimeters of armor on their bow and their stern, and coating everywhere for like torpedo blisters and stuff. In most cases, it's all 32. So your secondary guns, if it simply touches the ship, they will be penetrating that armor and doing damage. And you don't have to take IFHE or anything, because it's the German guns. You get the improved pins so that you're doing that base, and you have the fire chance intact, because if you take IFHE, that cuts your fire chance in half. But not so much so on the Adalbert, because, again, you can do 32 millimeters base, so that 9% fire chance on those 150s, and that 6% fire chance on the 128s, you get that. And that is bonkers. So, yeah, if you love secondaries, these are amazing. And you get 30 of them, which is just ridiculous. So, on top of that, it's German, so naturally it has to have torpedoes, and you get 10 torps total, 2 set of tubes, 5 tubes per set, so, yeah. And they have a range of 9.5 kilometers, and they still do 16,560 maximum damage. They travel at 65 knots, and they're detectable from 1.3 kilometers. So, not only do you have long-range secondaries, you have some pretty darn long-range torpedoes for the Germans. Most German ships that get torpedoes get the 6-kilometer torps. Not the Adalberts. 9.5 kilometers is more than enough to either be, cutting out and leading someone into your secondaries, and you're tossing torpedoes at them as they chase after you. So that's amazing. And of course, you can just use them the old-fashioned way, drive by enemy ships and just dump, a rack of torps into their side to finish them off. Works either way. Great set of torpedoes, in my opinion. AA, it's there, and you build into it the secondary guns, because the 128s are dual purpose, so it does buff them out a little bit, and it's got like pretty decent AA, but it's no AA barge, in my opinion. Maneuverability, very fast ship, 34.7 knots, which is more than fast enough to get you in trouble. I say very fast ship because it feels like a battleship. I mean, it's a panzer ship. It's a small battleship, essentially. But yeah, 34.7 knots with the flag, more than fast enough to get you into trouble, and it got me in trouble the first couple of games I was out and about experiencing my Adalbert, so you do gotta be mindful about that. But yeah, very fast, great for engaging and disengaging. Speaking of, oh, by the way, turn circle radius 900 meters. She a big girl, so she needs a second to turn and a 14.1 second rudder shift time. Consummate is 11.9 kilometers max with the commander skill in the module, which, as you might notice, is well within your base secondary gun range in automatic firing mode with a secondary build. So basically, when you're spotted, whatever is spotting you is in your secondary gun range. So once it gets spotted, you can just tear it apart with your secondary guns, which is very satisfying to do, and yet again, amazing. So those are her stats for her box of gimmicks. Doesn't really have too much in terms of consumables. Hydro or DFAA, so you take Hydroacoustic Search or the incorrect option. You get 3 hills base that regen 402 points per second for 28 seconds. So pretty standard hill. And of course the fast damage control teams that you find on the German battle cruiser line. 10-second runtime, 40-second cooldown time. So great to use in a pinch, but of course, in longer sustained engagements, you're going to start finding yourself running out of of damage cons. So that's the Adalbert. This ship is really fun to play when things go right. And that was one of the things that I was very much noticing when I was playing through the Adalbert. Naturally, you want to get very close to your target to use your secondary guns. And your main battery guns too, they have an 18.2 kilometer main battery gun range, and at that range, the accuracy really isn't there with the secondary build, which is of course what you're going to put on the Adalbert anyway. So when you are trying to get close in today's World of Warships, you're team doesn't really want to do that, of course. So you've got to very much bide your time and wait for the right opportunity to pounce. And of course, with just how today's World of Warships goes, you don't really have a lot of those opportunities cropping up because your team is perfectly happy to sit in the back for the entire game. And you're just kind of sitting there waiting to go, waiting to use your secondaries, waiting to spring the trap on the enemy team. And it just never happens. Now, one thing, too, I was also noticing about the Adalbert when I would get into engagements is that, well, it feels like the Germans just doused the ship in oil and kerosene and left all the buckets full of kerosene on deck. This thing, like, catches on fire like it's nobody's business. It might be because, YouTuber, new ship, everyone's focusing me down. But, man, I really felt like I was just getting set on fire constantly when playing this thing, which, leads to the frustration of, like, I look behind me and you go, hey, battleships, what are you doing sitting back there, buddy? I'm your cruiser. I'm pushing up. Even though we have the numbers advantage on this side, you guys are just sitting there for some reason and letting me take all the heat. That happens several times. Although, that's not a unique thing to the Adalbert. That's just how teams be nowadays, That's just really, really frustrating when you're playing this ship, trying to get those secondaries going, get those manual secondaries on target and such. But yeah, no, like when you get into secondary gun range, which again is 13.6 kilometers in manual mode, things are very magical with the Adalbert. You just overwhelm the enemy target with your suppressive fire of, well, basically your Colbert bolted to your side, right? That's how many HE shells you're seeing down range pretty dang constantly. Just hold down left mouse, just let the shells do their work, and it's great. Great for forming down superstructure, great for bullying destroyers. Just damage hose bolted to either side of your ship, which is just downright absurd, right? So if you like secondary ships, you are for sure going to absolutely love the Adalbert. I have no reservations about that. And most of you that are looking to get this ship or grind out the ship, you know what you're getting into with how the meta is nowadays and such. So it's definitely a ship that, if you're here watching this video, you're probably already sold on this ship, and I'm here to tell you, yeah, it's a really good ship. Just be mindful about your forward secondary gun angles. Be mindful about not overextending. Don't let that speed get you in trouble, because while it has as many guns as a battleship, it's not a battleship at the end of the day. You still have that 27mm bow and stern, which means you can't really brute force your way into situations too much unless it's against another cruiser or something. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. If you've got like a battleship cornered and it's just you and him, and it's not something like a GK or a Schlieffen or a Libertad, you're probably going to murder them, right? If you're smart about angling and such. But you do very much have to bide your time and wait for the right moment to pounce in the Adalbert. So if you play smart, you do that. Don't rush into a situation. You'll have a great time in the Adalbert. But if you're reckless, just try to W key in there and make it work, you might do some damage before you go down, but you are going to go down pretty fast because, again, at the end of the day, it is a cruiser. So for a numerical rating for the Adalbert, I would happily give it, and I do happily give it, a 9 out of 10. This is a fantastic ship. It's going to be everywhere for Tier 10 ranked, I can promise you. Tier 10 clan battles, I think it was showing up too once it, no, you could bring it in once you had it in early access. So, yeah, easily going to be everywhere for competitive. Definitely going to be all over the place in randoms as well. So, I love it. I highly recommend you guys grind up the line. If you're a normal viewer of the channel and you're a brawler like me, German battleship enjoyer like myself, you are going to absolutely love the Adalbert. So hope you guys enjoyed the video and the review of the Adalbert. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about the ship. Hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.